and then I will introduce you. And then Mustafa, I'll ask you to show some photos and so on before we get going. And whenever Case joins us, good, we'll hear from him. All right. So we are now live and I'm about to start. Hi, I'm Meta Spencer. Today we're going to go to Yemen, but fortunately in a very safe way. You get to do it on your computer. Although we have three Yemeni experts who are going to bring us up to date about the things that are going on in that unfortunate country, that beautiful and unfortunate country. Dr. Abdullah Nasher is in Ottawa. He's a surgeon. He's the former Minister of Health in Yemen and then the former ambassador to Canada. Mustafa Bahran is a visiting physics professor at Carleton University, former Minister of Electricity and Energy in Yemen. And Dr. Case Ghanem is a neurologist at the University of Ottawa. He's just joined us. Good morning, Case.
Good morning.
It's now we'd like to see you too. I only see your a snapshot of your face. Can you show us your real face? Keep working on that, and but we're live now, so I'm going to go ahead and launch this conversation. And Dr. Ghanem, if you can make your real face available to us, that will be helpful. Otherwise, we will look at your photo. All right. So good morning, everybody. And I do want to have a conversation about the tragic situation in Yemen, which, as I understand it, is the worst humanitarian crisis in the world today. Although I guess India and its COVID epidemic is right up there, pretty close to the top too. Anyway, I want Dr. Professor Bahran, if you'll be so good as to give us a photo or a few photos of the country. First of all, actually, I would like to share a photo of where Canada, where Yemen is in the world. So you should be able to see my screen right now, and this will give you a notion of where the Yemen, the country is located on the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. And then now I'm going to stop my sharing so that Professor Bahran can show us some other photos. Hi.
Hello. Before I say I'll show you the photos, let me just get 1 minute about, for those who do not know about Yemen, just a very small brief introduction. Yemen is about 30 million people. Almost 40% of the population of Arabia are in Yemen. And 70% of those live in rural areas, which I'm going to show, the highlands. And it's a young population. 50% of the population is under 15 years old. And the population growth is quite high, one of the highest in the world, almost 3%. It's about 2.5 now. And it's a little bit more than 5 million kilometers square of diverse land, which I'm going to show. It's a rich ancient history, beautiful place. The European love this, love Yemen very much. I mean, tourism I'm speaking about. And it's an agriculturally based country, 99% Muslim, 30% of those, almost 27%, that is, Zaydi Shia, and 70% Sunni. That's just a brief introduction for those of you who are joining us, and I welcome you all, and I thank our host. And let me show you now the visual, really, introduction of Yemen. It's part of something
There we go. Isn't that amazing? Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yes, let me go full screen. This is part of a talk I give often about Yemen. And as I said, the Yemenis are very resilient, very beautiful people. They not only farm land, they farm mountains. using terraces. And here is
What is
another
that?
landscape.
Excuse me. Is that rice or what are they growing on those?
This is mostly wheat,
Weeds.
wheat and corn.
Oh, wheat. I thought you said weeds. Very
Grain,
good
grain.
farmers if they can grow weeds.
It is grain, grain,
Okay.
it's grain.
All right.
And the landscape is so diverse and so beautiful. This is another picture where most of Yemenis live in the top of the mountain, and they farm the valleys and the terraces.
Wow.
This is a very famous palace called the Rock Palace outside the capital city of Sana'a, or Dar el Hajar. And this is the very famous gate of Yemen. This is the capital city, the old capital city,
Now,
which
has it been damaged? These beautiful buildings with their wonderful decorations. I heard that there had been damage from the war. What's the situation?
Yeah, some of them, particularly in the capital here, this is what I'm showing you, there has been damage due to airstrikes. Yes, and I want to draw your attention that this capital is a current capital. It's been a capital for the last 2,000 years. This is the oldest running capital in the world.
Wow.
And this is another I said Yemen is diverse. This is Hadramaut. This is closer to Oman. This is a mud skyscrapers city made of mud. That's a different architecture from the architecture I just showed you a minute ago.
Now wait a minute. I think you can't go past that. That is just too amazing. Skyscrapers made of mud. When were they built?
This is the valley. It's a long valley. It's called the Hadramaut Valley. It starts. It ends up at the sea, of course. But this valley is a house. It houses one of the old Yemeni sort of heritage tribes, and it has so many magnificent attraction. One of them is the mud skyscrapers. The second you may want to be interested in is the honey. They produce the most expensive honey on earth.
Really? All right.
Yeah. And it's very famous.
But now these buildings look like they might be 10 stories tall.
They are. And purely mud.
And how long people have been living in them for what? Hundreds of years?
Yeah, 1,000.
Really? Amazing.
Yeah, a couple of thousands at least.
Oh my word. Okay.
Right.
All right. Onward. Good.
And the next this is also part of Hadramaut, but this is on the Indian Ocean. It's an island, one of the most interesting islands of the world. It's a jewel of the world, called, and a jewel of Yemen. It's the Socotra Island. Socotra Island is basically the most unique island in the universe in terms of its unique flora, plantations, animals, and biodiversity, if you will. It has this tree that doesn't exist anywhere in the world. It's called the dragon blood tree, and we Yemenis call it the brother's blood tree. Famous, and so many other trees that are very much exist in this island alone.
Okay.
This is the city that the three speakers with you today love so much. It's the city of Aden. And this spot, the Elephant Bay, is my favorite spot in the whole world if I am vacationing, so to speak. And it's Elephant Bay because of this elephant you can see in the picture. I'm really sad to say the elephant does not exist anymore because of the war. It was damaged in the war, but the spot is still there, of course. This is the very famous Queen of Sheba temple in Marib city. Marib city happens to be the focal point of the war, of the Yemeni war today, and we'll get to that in due time. Mm-hmm. This is one of the faces of the Queen of Sheba, one of the beautiful faces of this very famous queen in our history and the world history. And I'm just putting this Yemeni, beautiful Yemeni girl, hoping that is going to be the future Queen of Sheba one day, either this one from the south, the north, or this one from the south.
All
So-
right. Very good. Thank you so much, Mustafa. Those are beautiful photos. Okay, very good. Now, Abdullah, would you be so good as to say hello a little bit and tell us what you know about the current situation? I want us to I'm just very mindful of the fact that there is near famine, if not a real famine going on in the country, and that COVID is completely out of control. What's the situation there when the last you heard?
Okay, the situation is very bad. It's like a disaster, a war which has been going on for 7 years, which have resulted in huge humanitarian crisis, like lack of food, water, services. 50% of the 30 million population, which my friend Mustafa was talking about, are in famine. 7 years of war have resulted in collapse of all services, health services, education, water supplies, clean water supplies, food, and education. In addition to that, about 3 to 4 million people of Yemen have been displaced, either to other areas in Yemen or abroad. They've left, to neighboring countries or to Egypt or elsewhere. Lots of killing and diseases, apart from the killing from the war, there is COVID, as we have just mentioned. There is cholera, malaria, dengue fever, and many other communicable diseases.
Oh.
So people are in really desperate situation for the essential things to survive, to continue living. They haven't been getting their salaries. Most of the people who are employees of the economy have collapsed. The currency have lost its value, and the sufferings continue when the whole world is keeping a closed eye or closed eyes and deaf ears. Nobody is interested in what's going on there. Now, I remember when Rwanda went into civil war, after 3-4 years, the whole world went in there and made a stop to the war. Same thing happened to the Balkan War. It only lasted for a year, and then the world stepped in to stop it. 7 years of war in Yemen, and the world is just looking the other side, the other way. So there is a huge humanitarian crisis, and I am happy and glad to hear lately with the new administration in the US, who have taken some interest in Yemen, as Mustafa have mentioned earlier, that they are now meeting in Oman, in Muscat, Oman, discussing a way out of this war, or how to stop the war and take care of the what is left of the 30 million people who are really suffering. So that's my what I have been hearing lately.
Right. Mustafa, could you show us that map of Yemen up closer? And because I want to ask you to point out various landmarks or regions and explain what's happening in each of those places. Is it true? Go ahead and do your screen sharing so you can put that map up, if you will. And I'd like to know about the blockade. My impression is that the reason there's famine is it's not climate. It's not even inability. Well, it's caused, I gather, by an intentional blockade of one of the ports. Is that right? Okay. Now, what are the different cities? Good. That's you blow it up. That's a little bit. Show us where these ports and different regions are and who's in control, etc.
This map is I used in the past to show the where the AQAP locations in Yemen, but the most important cities is this is the capital here, Sana'a, and this is the other capital, Aden.
Is that where all these beautiful mud skyscrapers that we saw?
Here, this one here.
All right.
There it is.
And that's
This
on the
is-
Gulf of Aden.
This here, and there is Sayoun here, and this is really where the picture I showed you is in here.
Mhm.
It's in the, this is the valleys goes this way. It's actually to the left a little bit, near, comes closer to this area, which is Shabwa. So the valley goes like this. Okay. So Yemen is really a coastal country because it has the Red Sea to the left here, and the Gulf of Aden, Indian Ocean is to the south. And it's the landscape is diverse because this is a mountainous region, and this is basically a flat with relatively flat region with desert here. It comes less topography as you go north towards Saudi Arabia, because this is Saudi Arabia and here is Oman.
Mhm.
So what was your question, please?
Well, different. You said that there's some place where the Al Qaeda is now based. Is that
Right.
true?
Yeah, these are, it's been changing. This is a slide that is about a year old, but still these areas are the areas where Al Qaeda either still exist or used to around in both the Abiyan and Shabwa and Hadramaut governorates or regions.
Now, this is to me very puzzling because I hear about the Houthi as the group of people who were challenging the previous government, but I didn't know that that part of the war was involving Al Qaeda.
Yeah, it's Al Qaeda because everybody is against Al Qaeda, including the Houthi. This is the funny part. The funny part is the warring parties and all the international supporters of the war, regional and international supporters of the warring parties, are all against Al Qaeda. Therefore, the Al Qaeda has diminished, as some, particularly here in Hadramaut, their less existence. Yet, what Al Qaeda does is when vacuum exists, they fill it.
Oh.
That's what they do, whether in Yemen or elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Now, to what extent is the famine still being caused by a blockade? And I heard of a blockade some time ago. Is there still a blockade, and where's the big port that is relevant in a blockade?
The major port in the south is Aden here, this one here, and in the north is Al Hudaydah, and this Hudaydah is a major battle point between the warring parties. Hudaydah is still in the hands of the Houthis, but the outskirts of Hudaydah is in the hands of the legitimate government forces. Now, the blockade itself is partially to blame with the famine, but the reason for the underlying reason for the famine is the fact that people have no money to buy, have no income, no jobs,
Really, I'm sorry, but
no salaries.
is there food there for them to buy if they have the money? Or
Yeah.
is it, there is plenty of food available?
There is a plenty of food in the cities, but not in the 70% in the countryside, right? 70% of the population are rural population. And in the countrysides, the food shortages are great. But in the cities, the food is available if you have the money to buy it.
Hmm, I see. I hadn't heard that. So but there was a blockade, wasn't there? And maybe
And it's still there. It's a blockade, and meaning no ship can go in without the approval of the coalition forces or the coalition command.
the coalition being the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia,
right?
And the United Arab Emirates.
Yep.
Right. And what else?
And a number of other countries, but mainly the other countries do not do anything anymore. Mainly are the two countries in a military sense. Saudi Arabia and UAE are the ones that have planes on the skies, ships on the sea, and boots on the ground.
Now, do they actually, how do they stop? If I were to send in a shipload of canned goods, what would happen to me? Would they shell the ship? What would they do? How would they keep food from coming in?
They have a protocol. For the ship has to call through maritime channels the ships that are circulating Yemen, and gets approval, gets a license to get in.
They get a license from
the coalition.
From the coalition. Okay. Now, if they don't, then what would happen?
That have to turn around.
They would be shot at.
I mean, if it's a civilian ship, it's going to turn around. It's not going to try to defy,
Okay. Okay. Now, we hear in Canada about Canadian armored personnel carriers being sold to Saudi Arabia. And there's a suspicion, I don't know how much proof, if any, that some of them may have been used against the Yemen population. Where is the fighting going on? And where would such a thing occur? Show me the war, if you can do it with that map.
Here it is. This is the war.
The yellow part.
Yeah, this is the two sections. The red one is controlled by the Houthis. The other part is controlled by the different factions that are not Houthi. They're mostly coalition government, but the coalition itself, government forces are not unified. They're infighting between them as well. It's really a coalition made in hell, if you will.
They don't like, even the people fighting the Houthis are not on the same page.
Exactly. So, and except this slightly, this part here has been taken by the Houthis recently in Al Jawf. But this is basically it. Here is the city of Hodeidah is with Houthis, but outside the city is with a faction of anti-Houthi forces. But that faction is really loyal to UAE more than to Saudi Arabia or the legitimate government. If you come to the city of Aden and surrounding area, it's controlled by an entity called the Transitional Council. And that entity is a strong entity now, and it's controlling the city, the beautiful city of Aden. And it's aligned with UAE, not Saudi Arabia.
Well, what's the dispute between UAE and Saudi Arabia? What are they fighting over?
That's an interesting question because they're supposed to be members of the same coalition, correct? They are, but at the same time, they have different agendas. The UAE is trying to control the Yemeni areas that has to do with the ocean and the Red Sea. They want to control. You realize UAE has a major stake, international stake, in controlling shipping, international ocean shipping, basically. They have this large port in UAE in Dubai, and that port is really one of the major hubs of the actually international, the universe. And if Aden, for example, becomes, and Aden is very beautifully situated to be a hub that will take the business from that Dubai hub. So the Emirates are interested in not making Aden realize its potential.
Okay, and the Saudis would just as soon build it up if they could. I mean, what do they want? What do they want to take over the country? Do they want to install their own the government that they particularly prefer? And you talk about the legitimate government as if it's still legitimate, but it sounds like legitimate to me means that most people recognize it as the one that's the real one. But it sounds like there are no good guys in this. They're only bad guys.
Exactly. They are legitimate. We have to face it because they're legitimate because the current president is the last democratically elected president. And you have, we should mention, not forget, that the UAE and Saudi Arabia have also legitimate concern, which is the fact that the Houthis are part of the Iranian regime, and this regional proxy.
Wait a minute, hold on. The Houthis are part of the Iranian regime?
Loosely speaking, I mean, Houthis are very much.
I've heard a lot of variation in the assessment of how closely they were tied to Iran. You think of them as like a pawn of Iran, is that right?
They are. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Houthis are very much a pawn of Iran. The Houthis, their military strength, their know-how, their rockets, their drones. They have very huge drones.
Okay, what about culturally? Are they Shia?
They are a different brand of Shia.
The Houthi militia are Shia, and the rest of the country is Sunni. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Or is that even relevant?
It's not a sectarian war. I have to submit to you.
It's not about it. Okay.
It's not. The fact that Houthis are using their Shia doctrine, the Zaydi, it's not your regular Iranian Shia. It's a different sect within Shia.
Okay.
It's called Zaydi Shia. They're using that because they're claiming a birth right to rule Yemen because they are the descendants of Prophet Muhammad. Think about it. At this day and age, somebody says, I'm going to rule because I'm the son of Muhammad, that is grandson of Muhammad. This kind of nonsense is that makes the Saudis and the Emiratis have concern, and we understand that. The problem is the Saudis and the Emiratis, they do have that concern, and it's legitimate, but they're not. That's the only concern driving their action. They have other motives which are not good for Yemen as well.
All right. Well, I'm trying to get at what are the various motives of these different actors? Because if you, okay, so between, okay, now we got, you've already mentioned what sounds like 4 different sectors. You've got the Houthis, you've got the legitimate government, you've got the Saudis, and you've got the UAE.
Right.
And these are 4, they have not exactly common goals. What do each of them want to accomplish?
Now, before let me just say the legitimate government itself is really multifactional.
Okay.
It is mainly two factions: the Islamic Brotherhood, which is really the largest political party, organized political party in the North Yemen, and the currently it's called the Transition Council, but it's really not only the transitional Southern Transitional Council, also other Southern groups which call for secession of the South. See, so all of these.
Secession. They want to divide the country in two.
Yeah.
And they would have the Southern people, the legitimate, what you call legitimate government, would retain control of Aden and that southern region, and the Houthis would take over the northern. But it's not that they're all looking to control the whole country.
No, hold on. The legitimate governments want to control the whole country.
Okay.
But the southern portion of the legitimate government wants to secede and control the South and run it by itself.
Okay, well, it sounds to me like they need to have a big conference, and all of these guys should say what they want, because they obviously can't all get what they want.
At the end of the day,
if at the end of the day, but what about right now? I mean, are they just going to go on fighting without even a common, an agreed upon set of what it is they're fighting over?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to submit to you that all of these parties are worse. Each one is worse than the other. The Houthis only slightly worse because it invoke this sacred right rule. Other than that, they're all bad, and they ought to get in one room, share power, and get done with this.
All right.
That's the only way out.
Right. All right. How is that going to happen? Listen, I also want, Abdullah and Case are sitting here quietly listening to us as you're straightening out my head, which I needed some help with. But I wonder if all three of you see things the same way, or maybe there's some dispute. Maybe we can turn off the screen share so we can look at somebody else. I'll tell you what I'll do. You turn off the screen share, and I'll turn on some kind of gallery view so we can all have a look at each other, except for Case, who's hiding from us. Okay, tell me, do you two guys, Abdullah and Case, do you agree with everything that Mustafa has said, or would you challenge some of his assertions?
I think Qais have to go because we haven't heard him yet.
The reason why I would not participate in this discussion, which is extremely complex, is that I really don't know enough about the subject to be credible, partly because I've been out of the country for the past 50 years in Canada here. Although I have been going back to with the medical team to help out professionally, that's all. But I think I agree with the summary that Mustafa gave, and it's extremely makes every sense from what I heard of him. The only thing that I would add is that also in addition to all that, it's not just a question of the North and the South being different. Within the North and within the South, there are already some major subdivisions, because the South, for example, has about 10 different regions, all following, all tribal. So that there is the Audalis and the Abdalis, and there is the people from Abian, and each one of those areas used to be a autonomous, more or less, under a sheikh or a sultan or an emir, supervised by the British when they were running South Yemen. And in the north, there's also so many different tribal groups, those who are from the east, from the region of Al-Bayda, and then you have the people from Hujariya in the south, and so on. So it's all very, very, very much a tribal thing. And tribal differences, of course, thrive when there is no physical communication, bad roads, no railway, no airline contact amongst themselves. And also when there is a very low level of education. In the highest, one of the highest illiteracy rates in the world is in Yemen. Not so much in South Yemen, but definitely in North Yemen. I would just add that because I happen to kind of know these bits. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, if I were put in charge of solving the problem, it may be that the reason people are ignoring it, as you said, Abdullah, that they're not paying attention the way they would to another war, is it sounds so confusing. How would anybody even begin to, an outsider, somebody who really doesn't know the situation, how would they even begin to know how to go in and try to solve the problem? It just sounds, the more you talk, the more confused I get,
It is. You're right.
Yeah.
And it's like the more I know, the more I really realize I don't know a damn thing,
I think,
okay.
Yeah.
So what has to happen, and who could do it? If we do hear word that the humanitarian crisis is just absolutely the worst in the world, but you hear this, and of course we don't get photos of people suffering much. I did see one on was it CNN a few weeks ago, where some journalists went in to a children's hospital, and you could see these starving babies dying, right in that hospital. And it was difficult because she was not allowed in the country, but she sneaked in by boat at night and did things like that to get in. So it's clear that getting good press coverage is extremely difficult, and it just isn't happening. So, that may be one of the problems. If we could get, if we had images of what's going on and how painful life is there, there might be more energy devoted to trying to solve the thing. But suppose you all three were a committee of three to solve the war. You are now empowered to make some decisions. What are you going to do?
Can I start?
Go ahead, Abdullah.
Absolutely.
I said something, yeah. I just want to go back like 30, maybe 40, 50 years ago. Yemen was two sort of countries until 1990. There was North Yemen, which was ruled until 1962 by an autocratic imam who ruled over this sort of family or group, have ruled Yemen, as Mustafa have mentioned before, in the divine right to rule for the last 1,000 years, because they are descendant of the claim of the Prophet Muhammad. South Yemen was under the British rule. Aden was a British colony from 1839 to 1967. The rest of the South, during the British time, were called British protectorates. They were separate, sort of independent sultans and sheikhs, you know, Hadramaut, Lahaj, Abyan, Shabwa, all these were under sultans or sheikhs. 1967, the British left. The ruling party at the time managed to unite the whole of the South and created a republic called the Democratic Republic of South Yemen, which was strong, rule by the rule of the law. They were controlling the South, and it was somehow more advanced than the North because of the British. You know, schooling and health services and everything was quite advanced. 1990, both parts of Yemen united, and in 1994 there was a war because they didn't get on well, and the president of the North declared war to reunite the country, and the South wanted to separate at that time, and they were defeated. And the country continued to be one, but unfortunately 1994 have damaged that unity. People in the South were, after the war, which was won by the president from the North at the time, became like victims. They were not properly treated. So unity, in fact, have ended or stopped or damaged in 1994. That's why now there is the Southern Transitional Council as part of the legitimate government or the legitimate entity, who is main aim and main function is to restore the South as separate from the North. And that would explain why there is more than one faction in the legitimate bloc of Yemen. So there is the most of, like Mustafa have mentioned, the Muslim Brotherhood Party, which sort of believes in a united country, and the president who is been in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for the whole period of the war, and the Southern Transitional Council, who is fighting or struggling to regain the South and declare a separate country.
Can I ask, I'd hate to interrupt this, but I want to, you use the term Muslim Brotherhood. Now, I've heard that word in connection with other countries. So I don't even quite know what it is, but my impression is that the Muslim Brotherhood is kind of a movement of in all kinds of Arab countries. It's not local to one country, is it? But you talked it as if it's a party. Are we talking about a specific party within Yemen, or are we talking about a group of people who are part of a pan-Arab movement?
Okay. Yeah, the Muslim. I will just say what I know about this, and then Mustafa might also talk more about it, because he probably knows more about it. You see, the Muslim Brotherhood have started or was created or established in Egypt at the beginning of the last century. And then it continued to survive in Egypt, but then they have branched out of Egypt, and they have got members outside Egypt, in Yemen, in Saudi Arabia, in Syria, and most of the Arab countries, and even some of the Islamic countries, not the non-Arab countries. In Yemen, there was a political party created after unity, when they opened up democracy, and that was one of the main sort of things or good things about the unity, that they have allowed parties and free press and free expression. And those who belong to the Muslim Brotherhood in Yemen have created an Islah party, which is Yemeni party, but with the roots from the Muslim Brotherhood, or they have the same belief.
What is their distinctive about their ideology?
Let me jump in a little bit and just to make you understand what you said about Islam, Muslim Brotherhood is correct. It's a pan-Arab. It's actually even beyond Arab. It's an international organization that doesn't believe in countries and borders. It believes in the ultimate belief is the caliphate, which will control. Yeah. So the issue here is what Abdullah said is that the Muslim Brotherhood, Yemeni Muslim Brotherhoods who are part of this international organization, they, after 1990, they put together a party in Yemen. It's called Islah Party. So it is a party, and it's also part of the pan-Arab or beyond that organization. See, that clarifies the issue to you. So it is both a Yemeni party called Islah. Islah means it's an Arabic
Reform.
It's an Arabic word for reform. It's a reform party, if you will. That's the Yemeni party, but the people in it are also member of this international entity.
And would you call it a conservative entity, or is it what would they be people I would like or people I wouldn't stand?
Well, mostly people who are quite religious, very and factions. There's a faction of Islah Party that's not much different than Al Qaeda.
Mm-hmm.
And the other factions who are in Europe and United States are people that you can really deal with easily.
Mm-hmm.
But they believe in a set of beliefs, common beliefs, in which they struggle to an end product. I don't know when that end product will be realized. I don't think it will. That they will rule the world as well. So if you want to know the truth, not much difference between them and the Houthis ideologically. The ideology is almost the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. Now, let me go back to, you ask, what is the way out of this? It's simple. The international community must put an end to the fighting by establishing a comprehensive ceasefire. First, establishing comprehensive ceasefire is number one. Number two, putting everybody in one room and having establishing or succeeding in a peace sharing agreement, a peace and power sharing agreement that will reserve everybody's interest, if you will.
They can't, but you've already described things that are completely incompatible. I mean, if you want to secede, you can't also hold the country together. These are two, unless
they will have to agree in a common thing. They're not going to secede. They have to agree in an autonomy of some sense. Okay. They have to give and take. So that's what the negotiation is all about. So the UN has not been able to enforce or put the parties into a negotiation table even directly. The reason for that is, and this is my third point, is the fact that the two parties the decision is not only theirs. You must get both regional powers into the room, agreeing to the power sharing agreement, which is Iran and Saudi Arabia and Emirates.
Okay, so really, to solve the thing, you can't just solve it in Yemen. You've got to solve this whole fight between Yemen, between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
To a sense, yes. That's why the current talks in Oman are very good, because you've got the current talks in Oman are very good news. You got
who put that together? There, you say there's current talk going on. Who started it? Is the UN behind it, or
I think it's the US. It's Tim Linderking, the US new US Biden envoy to Yemen, special envoy. Mm. His name is Tim Linderking. Tim Linderking is he's very energetic. He put this together. So you got Martin Griffith, the UN envoy, Tim Linder King, the US envoy to Yemen. You got the Saudi Arabia Prince Faisal bin Farhan, who is the foreign minister. You got the Iranian minister, Jawad Zarif. They're all in Oman. They went there.
How long has this been going on?
Now, I think it's didn't go far enough, and there's nothing that materialized. But the fact that it happened and people went to, at least in the same country, they didn't go to the same room, by the way. They were in the same country. They were, talking through the Omani counterpart.
Sorry, it's like what's going on in Vienna between the US and Iran, okay? You don't talk to each other, but you send somebody envoys back and forth. Okay. So they can't even stand to be in the same room. Well, all right.
And actually, let me add to you. And there are other factors that makes me a little bit slightly optimistic. The first is the Prince the Saudi Arabia Crown Prince, MBS, Crown Prince MBS. He had an interview recently, a very famous TV interview, in which he put together an spoken language toward Iran that is a reasonable one, that makes me feel that Iran, and they have been talking together through the Iraqi government as well. That's Saudi Arabia and Iran. And there could be a movement forward to settle this. The problem is, in my view, without settling the international dispute with Iran over the nuclear deal, this is not going to move forward. I think Yemen will become a part of the overall negotiation with Iran on the nuclear deal that Trump stopped. Trump withdrew from the nuclear agreement with Iran.
Hold on.
See?
Hold on. Now you just threw in a whole different set of issues. You're linking the nuclear deal with the US to this whole Yemen.
Right. The Iranian will use Yemen as a card. They have been. Like Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a card in the Iranian hands, isn't it? Hezbollah in Lebanon.
That's my impression, but I don't know how they're using it. I don't, but okay. Now, I don't even understand the US position on this. I really didn't think the US made any difference here, but now you're saying it does. I couldn't understand why Trump was so much in favor of Yemen, of the Saudis. But now, what is Biden doing? I mean, I presume he's switching. Is he really switching, or is he just sliding sideways a little bit? You know what I mean? Is he just changing the tone, or is he really changing sides?
I think Biden is interested in peace in Yemen. I think he is. I have spoken to a number of colleagues that are close to his campaign before he became a president, and I think he's interested in stopping the Yemeni war. The problem is Biden cannot do that without resolving the Iranian issue, because Iran is a major player when it comes to the Yemeni peace initiative.
Well, when you say resolving the Iranian issue, that's what you said, right? The whole problem with Iran is so big that I wouldn't have even thought of trying to address it in one negotiation. I would have assumed they're completely separate issues. The JCPOA has nothing to do with Yemen, but you're saying they do.
I have dealt with the Iranian diplomats for a long time, and I'm going to tell you this: Yemen the Yemen war will not be resolved, except because the West has a big leverage on Saudi Arabia. United States can tell the Saudi Arabia to stop the war today, and they will follow that. They have a very great leverage when it comes to Saudi Arabia. They do not have the same leverage with Iran.
Yeah, that stands to reason. Yeah.
All right. So once that's why I think that's only my position. I think the US is highly interested and genuinely interested in peace in Yemen, but peace will not prevail until the West and Iran come together and resolve the dispute over the nuclear deal.
What is that going to take? Ooh, boy, that really that scares me, because I don't know why they haven't already solved that. Yeah, I don't understand why they didn't solve that 10 years ago. Because Iran says we don't really want nuclear weapons anyway, and I don't know whether to believe them or not, but they weren't building one, and therefore all of these things about how much you enrich the plutonium and uranium and stuff. Why were they bothering to enrich uranium if they didn't want a nuclear weapon? If they do want a nuclear weapon, they're not going to fool around with trying to trade off Yemen for something else. That I can't put all that in one equation.
Look, Iran wants to be the superpower in the region. You see, that's another issue beyond the nuclear. So let me go back to Yemen. The Houthis are the reason. Houthis will not agree to any peace deal if Iran is not on board. Simple as that. Let me repeat. The Houthis will not agree to any peace deal if Iran is not on board. That's why Iran must be on board. That's number one. The Houthis are trying today to consolidate power. They're pushing against Marib. They're trying to, have a better. They know the peace is coming and negotiation is coming. They want to have a better negotiating position. That's why they have a huge offensive today on Marib. Hundreds of people are dying every day on the battlefield from the Houthi side, and they're pushing hundreds of young men into the battle, trying to control this. If they do control Marib, it's over.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
Show me your map again, because this you're putting a new wrinkle in this conversation, and I don't know where this Marat thing is again.
Marib is here.
Okay. Where's
See,
Marat?
this is here. Here it is, Marib.
Oh, yeah. And
See,
that's where the fighting is going on now.
It's actually closer today. It's where is my arrow at?
Yeah.
This is an old map. It's now closer to this Marib city. It's only 10 kilometers away from Marib city.
Uh-huh.
And the Marib city is really the stronghold of both the legitimate government and Islamic Brotherhood at the same time in the north. That's where their seat of power, if you will. And also Marib is the source of oil, is the government, the governorate that houses the largest oil fields along with Shabwa here.
I'm sorry. Now you again thrown me. I didn't even know there was oil there.
Oh, there is. There is about, it used to be 500,000 barrels a day. Now it's before the war, it was like 290 or something, 300 barrel thousand.
And they're still digging it and selling it and stuff.
Yeah. It's
and now
sold.
who gets the benefit of this money from the oil?
Currently, still the legitimate government.
The legitimate government still is in control of it and can sell the oil and does.
Right.
And now you keep mentioning the Muslim Brotherhood up there.
Right.
They're not is it really a fight between the Muslim Brotherhood and the Houthis?
You got it. It's a sense. It's like 70% of the legitimate government is in the north. 70% of the government, legitimate government in the north, are Islamic brotherhoods. But in the south is a different issue. 70% of the legitimate government in the south is the Transitional Council, the Southern Transitional Council.
Uh-huh. Okay, all right, you guys, you other two guys, do you agree with Mustafa? Because we got to wind this up, and I don't think we're going to solve this war today.
And don't take the 70% quoted for me, just a rough estimate.
Okay, fair enough. Has he done a good job of educating me, or do you need to fix what he said?
May I say this? I think Mustafa is obviously very knowledgeable about this, far more than the two of us, certainly me. However, I think what we need to remember is that the countries that surround Yemen, in my opinion, I don't think it is in their interest. I don't think it's in their interest to have a strong, united, democratic country, because they are not. They have a big problem with democracy and with other things as well. And the history of at least South Yemen is such that democracy was such a common concept. Education was universal. The treatment amongst the different tribes, and there were tribes, but because of the way the British handled the situation when they were in charge, they got them to cooperate they got all their sultans and emirs and leaders to kind of meet once every 3 months or so and iron out their difficulties. The countries that are now surrounding Yemen are a one-man show, really, both in Oman, in Bahrain, in
Each
Saudi
country
Arabia,
has
of course. So
sorry.
it's not their interest.
But you're saying each country has its own one man as a one-man show. There's not one man. There's Saudi Arabia with this prince who's kind of influential in the region, isn't he? And then there's Iran with all of the Ayatollahs and all these guys. So really, they're two different. When you say the countries have a one-man show, you basically mean none of them are democratic at all, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds plausible to me.
That is correct.
It'll be a threat to them.
They don't want democracy. They don't want democracy in Yemen near them. Yes.
Exactly. You're in agreement with me, Mustafa. Yes.
Absolutely.
Abdullah, do you agree with what they've agreed to so far?
Yes.
Right.
That's
Well, I guess we got to leave it there because I'd love to end the war today, but we haven't done it. It doesn't look like. I certainly appreciate what you've done, and I'm glad that you've all been here with me today. And so I want to let me put you back on gallery so I can say goodbye properly to you.
Thank you for having all of us.
Thank you very much. This is actually, I think I understand a little more than I did before. Thank you very much. It's a hard,
very
good wishes.
See you, guys, and Abdullah. See you.
okay.
Thank you.